and welcome to Oilers Live. I've got as my guest tonight Eric Friesen. This is a new format for us. We're doing a live show, so you can listen live if you go to OilersLivePodcast.com. And in the top right on the website, you will see there's a little Oilers Live podcast player, and you can do that. You can pop it out, and you can listen there and stream the show. Also, we will have you have the ability to call in tonight. So you can call in and talk to myself or talk to Eric and talk about the Oilers. You can reach us at 587-907-5483. That's 587-907-LIVE. So hopefully we get some call-in listeners tonight. If not, you know what? The two of us will just chat some Oilers hockey. New format. I know it's this time of year. It's hard to talk too much hockey. There's not a lot going on, but we've had some recent Oilers news lately. Thanks for joining the show, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you know what? I think that in oil country, you can expect that people want to talk Oilers hockey all the time. So even though we're in August, rookie camp's just around the corner, so I don't think we'll have any shortage of things to talk about tonight.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, it's and we've had some pretty big news, and of course, one of the reasons I reached out to you to be on the show initially was you had just put out a new article, and that's it's related to some odds on favorite for who's going to win the Art Ross again this year. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you wrote and start us off tonight.
Yeah, well, thanks, Michael, first of all, for having me again. And it's the time of year when all the hockey pool fantasy guides are coming out. So I'm sure a lot of fans like me, want to get ready for their fantasy hockey season or want to see the odds of what all the experts are predicting for point totals this year. And when you look at what they had for the Oilers, I was a little disappointed with some of the predictions. I felt like some of the guys were low, but across the board, it seemed like everyone had McDavid leading the league in points. And the Hockey News is probably the authority on fantasy information. And I think that most hockey fans have, gone and read the Hockey News over the years and looked at what they have in terms of point predictions and just throughout the year, all the magazines that they put out. So they had McDavid leading the league in scoring again this year with 114 points. So I put together a piece on what this historically means if Connor was able to win a third straight Art Ross trophy and what his chances are of reaching the total. I'll even give it away. They had him scoring 114 points. If you want to read the article still, you can go to Oil on White and check it out. I attached a link to tonight's thread on Twitter as well. But I don't know about you, Michael, but I think that 114 points this year might be actually, as crazy as it sounds, a little low if the Oilers especially can get the power play going. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that last year was, lackluster power play. And what was it, 108 points Connor finished with? Was that what it was, 108?
He finished with 108 this past year.
Yeah, this past season, and really with not much of a power play to speak of. My suspicion is we're looking at 120 plus this year.
Oh, I think so, 100%.
Yeah. It's. He is, in a class of his own. Lately, I've been. It's not quite October yet, so I've been looking and watching some of the old games from last year. And, I'm always just sort of awestruck at watching games and realizing that there's, 5 or 6 potential extra points he could have had any given night if somebody had just, had their stick the right direction or the power play was on or anything like that.
Yeah. And Connor's such a good guy. He's never going to, scream at a teammate for finishing off one of his perfect passes. But at the same time, he's probably a little frustrated inside when he's giving such glorious opportunities to guys time and time again, and maybe they're only cashing in, we'll say 6 out of 10 times of what we could see.
Yeah, if that, I mean, it just, I think one of the games I watched recently, about 2 nights ago, was the Tampa Bay game late in the season when the Oilers were in Tampa Bay. That game, Kajula missed one just over the bar on an empty net. Ratty missed one. Connor had a breakaway that he didn't score on. That's just one game. I mean, and we know as fans and people that watch the game, I mean, that's a regular game for him. Mm-hmm. And so this year, although I know there's a lot of fans out there that are upset that we didn't make a wholesale coaching change, we've made a reasonably we've made enough of a coaching change, I think, that we'll see some differences on the power play. If we don't, I'd be really surprised.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans, well, at least I would hope, are really excited that, Manny Vivrios is going to come in and completely change things up. Everything last year was so stagnant, and it sounds like that's been a real strength of his, going back to his time in Europe, plus his 2 years with the Swift Current Broncos. So I think that if he can come in and implement some new strategies and get the most out of these players, because he was an offensive-minded player himself. When he played in the WHL, I believe, for the Prince Albert Raiders, he was a star offensive defenseman. So if he can come in and really get the most out of McDavid and Draisaitl, and hopefully the defense is chipping in more too, that we can start to put together what should be, at worst, a top 10 power play in the league, but ideally it should be a top 5.
So there's something that I've been, and I think you're right. I mean, I think with the talent we have, top 10 should be an expectation. Top 5 would be nice. I've been looking at, past years. I'm not much of a stats guy. I'm not a fancy stats guy. I'm not necessarily the kind of guy that hates them. I'm sort of in the middle. I think they have their place. The thing with me is I just don't really follow them that closely. Now, the one thing though that I did do is I went back, year over year, just to kind of, I mean, this is kind of an obvious thing, but what's the relationship between, power play efficiency and the playoffs? And it's pretty much, the top power plays in the league make the playoffs year over year. And with maybe 1 or 2 outliers each year at most. Yeah. Last year, we, had one of the worst power plays in the league. We didn't make the playoffs. I would expect, if with a good power play this year, you got somebody like Draisaitl who scored mostly even strength points. Mm-hmm. He starts to pick it up. Lucic, who we know is the everybody's favorite to pick on, if he's anything better on the power play, which I certainly expect him to be. I mean, I don't know if he's going to get first power play time or second power play time, but I think if he gets his confidence back and he can be playing first power play and be back to being a useful net front presence, right? This team, who knows what we can expect, and that's the optimistic guy, right? I mean, obviously, I want to temper my expectations because we know what it meant last year when we went in thinking too highly of this team.
Well, Lucic, I believe historically has been a better even strength player than a power play guy, and the year that he had his first year in Edmonton, when he had the 50-point season, I believe that was the outlier where he was more successful on the power play than at even strength. So maybe we can see him get back to where he was, but most importantly, it's important that Lucic is getting his confidence back. I'm not sure if he's going to be on the first power play unit or not, but if he does cement a spot there, then good on him. But it's just mainly important that Lucic finds a spot in the lineup where he can be successful. I think some people might start to turn on him again if they put him on the first power play unit and he has 0 power play points after the first month of the season. So, does he for sure have a spot locked on that top power play unit? I'm not willing to say he 100% does, but at the same time, it's like you mentioned, as a net front presence, there's probably no one better on the team that could do it. And that's where you want him, tipping in shots, screening the goaltender. Because really, if he plants his feet, I know there's some big defensemen in the league, but who can move the guy?
Yeah, no, and that's just it. I mean, when he's on his game and he's playing the solid, strong game, there's some people who hate this word, but the heavy hockey game that he's good at. I just think, he's maybe not, we can argue about what we're paying him till we're blue in the face. But he is still got a lot left to give this team.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, if you listen to Spit and Chicklets, did you listen to that episode?
I did. I listened to it about a week or two ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got the impression that's a guy that really wants to do well for this team. I like the guy personally. When he's been playing against the Oilers, or for that matter in the league, I hated him, right? Mm-hmm. When he wasn't on the Oilers squad. And those that listen to every one of my, or even some of my podcasts know, those are the guys I want on my team, or the guys I hate. Lucic is he's a strong player, and he's got a lot of value to this team. We just need to get past everybody needs to get past what he's getting paid, because that doesn't matter, right? Like, yeah. It's already, that's in the past. Now we just need him performing night after night.
He's been a highly coveted player for this team for years before they got him. I remember even when Craig McTavish first took over as GM, he mentioned in a press conference back in 2013 that they'd love to add a Milan Lucic type. And, and I think, I can't remember if it was Kevin Lowe or someone kind of tapped him on the shoulder and said, like, don't mention names of players under contract with other teams or something like that. It was funny.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It got a laugh in the room. Like all the Edmonton media kind of chuckled, and I'm sure someone can find it on YouTube somewhere, but, anyway, so he's a player that the team's wanted for a long time. Of course, there's that classic interview of McDavid when he was 15 years old playing for the Toronto Marlboros, where someone asked who his ideal NHL line mates would be, and he said, I think Jaromir Jagr and Milan Lucic. So, there's been a lot of connections to the Oilers organization even before he got there. And the guy's 2 years into a 7-year deal. Maybe he gets traded at some point during that contract, but he's going to come back for this year. And actually, the first half of last season wasn't too bad. I believe he was on pace for another 50-point season. It's just that his game absolutely eroded after Christmas, and the 1 goal in 46 games. That's not going to happen again. I don't think that there's any player on the team outside of maybe one of the defensive defensemen who's going to go with 1 goal in 46 games. Like, even Chris Russell scored at a better clip than that. So, I think that we can expect somewhat of a bounce back from Lucic. Hopefully he's an 18-goal, 40-point kind of guy.
Yeah, if we got that out of him, I think everybody would be ecstatic, right? Like, that's exactly the kind of season we need, and I think not just for the Oilers, but if you're a fan of Lucic, you want to see him bounce back and have a good season. You kind of felt for the confidence in the player. You could see it at the end of the season, the look on his eyes when they pan over to him on the bench, and he's got a lot more to give. Let's switch gears a bit. There's a couple stories we're gonna, as I've got you on the podcast tonight. Let's cover a couple things. One is the. Go ahead.
Just one last thing I'd like to mention.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, with McDavid getting picked for 114 points, I think that's, not too far off in terms of the hockey news. Just to let you know, they had Lucic scoring 22 points this season.
Yeah, actually I saw that.
Which is, I think, ridiculous. I just wanted to get that in before we finish. Like, I think some of the point totals are okay. Like Draisaitl with 75. Yeah, as a second line center, I could see him doing that. Nugent Hopkins 60 points. I don't see it. If he's playing with Connor all year, he's going to be closer to a point per game. I don't want to get too much into that because we'll get off topic, but I just wanted to point out before we left that I think that's ridiculous. 22 points for Lucic. I think he'll be at least at 40.
Yeah, all in all, though, I get the feeling that this is the season where not just the hockey news, but everybody tempers their expectation on the Oilers, right? Like nobody wants to go out there on a limb and say this team's going to make the playoffs, guaranteed, right? Nobody wants to do anything because of what we saw last year and all the question marks that we have, right? I think, if you look at this point in time last year, everybody was picking the Oilers for the Stanley Cup Finals, right?
Exactly. The experts want to see results. When the Oilers were so bad, no one ever picked them to make the playoffs. Even the year that they did go to the second round, were a game away from the conference final, I would say few to none of the major media outlets had the Oilers going even to the playoffs, even as a wild card pick. And then the following year, when they bottomed out, everyone had them winning the Stanley Cup. So basically, they're going to go based on what they see the previous year. So because the Oilers had such a poor season last year, everyone's going to expect them to be bad again this year. It just goes like you basically have to show them something before they're going to give you any credit or respect. So I think that the Oilers are going to prove a lot of people wrong this year.
Yeah. I certainly hope so. I think, I also think our expectations are, as I keep saying, tempered this year. I mean, if we make the playoffs, I think it's a bit of a success, and then we'll take it from there. They'll go a game at a time. But then you have a guy, and you said it on, I think the first time I ever had you on the podcast, you said anything with Connor McDavid is possible. So, that's exactly it. Once you get to the playoffs and you've got the best player in the league at this point in time, anything is possible. Okay, so I wanted to chat about a couple different things. There was a good article on the hockey news. I don't know if it was posted today or when it was posted. It was Ken Campbell, and it was about Nurse's contract, Hannah Finn's contract. Basically, the four defensemen that are yet to be signed, and these are second contracts that everybody's waiting for. What's your thoughts first and foremost on Nurse and the fact that we haven't seen a contract come out yet?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that it's taken this long. When it was in July and he hadn't signed yet, I thought, well, maybe it's, still in the process. People are on vacation, things like that. But now that we're getting, towards the end of summer with training camp just a couple weeks away, I think some fans are starting to get a little nervous that there could be a little bit of a holdout there, the way that Jacob Trouba held out 2 years ago in Winnipeg. So, yeah, that's a bit concerning. But I don't doubt that it'll get done. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen.
And of course, and this is, a good point by Ken Campbell in his article is you've got guys that really are all around given the same point totals. You've got Hanifin, you've got Theodore, Morrissey, Nurse, these four players. And I think everybody's just waiting for, that one contract to go that makes the market for these players, right? And, to me, it's a little bit of a scary proposition. That's the one thing that scares me right now. especially when I see, Hannafin's agent is Pat Brisson, who we all know is like, if you go to, I'm going to do a little shout out for Puckpedia. If you go onto Puckpedia, he's got the agent listings. Pat Brisson actually has over $1 billion in NHL contracts right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. By the way, we do have some listeners. Just want to let you guys know, if you want to call in, you can reach us at 587-907-5483. We'll take your call. Happy to have you on the show if you want to chat some Oilers hockey. Anyway, yeah, so those we're going to see those four, one of those four defensemen go. The challenge that I saw, and I never really thought about it until I read Ken's article today, is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a holdout, if they're all waiting for the shoe to drop, right, so to speak, and before they sign anything. I just don't want to see this go into camp, right, without contracts.
Yeah, because then you're talking about the player being set back because he's not practicing with his teammates regularly. He's not playing in the exhibition games, and yeah, it's not good. I think that it's got to be the dollar point. Like, I think the Oilers have come to the conclusion that Nurse isn't going to sign long term right now because they simply don't have the cap space to give him the salary that he wants long term. But you'd think that on a 2-year bridge deal, they would be able to agree to a price point by now.
Well, there's been up until Sekera's injury, there were all sorts of rumors in terms of what he was going to sign for. And this is the other part that concerns me a little bit is we had heard anywhere really from $2.5 to $3.5 million for 2 seasons. On the top range, I might have heard a $4 million thrown out there by a couple people, but for the most part, that was on the higher end. And then that kind of went away as soon as the Sekera injury was released. What's your thought? You think that had anything to do with this delay? Do you think that has anything to do with this delay?
With Sekera?
Yeah.
Well, they can put him on long-term injured reserve the day after the season starts, I believe. So then they'll have the cap space cleared up. But I don't think that should be holding it up. I can't see the Oilers waiting until October 7th to sign Darnell Nurse when they're over in Sweden and he's back in either Ontario or Edmonton. It's got to be putting a wrench in it. But ideally, they're gonna want to use the cap space that they're not going to have with Sekera out. So I think that it's just going to come to the point where they have to figure out, are we going to be able to sign him for the money that we have now, or what's going to happen? So I hope that the Sekera thing isn't impacting it. But I can assume that's why they at least went out and got Jurabek, because they thought, well, at least we have a little bit of money now that we can go and add a depth defenseman.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you happen to hear? I was tweeting out to Brendan Ulrich today because I saw he was going to have Jurabek on the show, but it turns out he was on yesterday. So the questions I wanted asked. Brendan's done a good job with Stauffer gone, but he had a couple questions for him. I think that. It was what was interesting listening to Jurabek was Caberlet was his childhood hero. That kind of surprised me. Everybody thinks, of course, when you think Czech players, you think Jágr. He did say, obviously, he said he liked Jágr. I mean, I think if you grew up in the Czech Republic or anywhere for that matter, and you're a hockey fan, you're a big Jágr fan. But he was talking about his puck moving game. What I wanted to know is what he felt. The two questions I wanted you to ask him were, what he thought led to his breakout season in the KHL, where he had an awesome year. He ended up on the second team All-Star, I think, that year. Most of it from power play time. And then I also wanted to know what he felt was the transition to the North American game, how he felt that impacted his play. I thought, he played 11 games in the regular season for the Caps, and he did I think 0.5 points per game or something, and then 2 games in the playoffs. So we didn't really see him in the playoffs, but I think what's positive is, he did well down the backstretch for the Caps and was called in for those 2 games. He might have had, I didn't see those 2 games he was in, so I can't really speak to them, but the playoffs are their own beast, right? If you don't think a guy's 100%, or you don't feel like he's the right guy to lead you through, then you're going to take him out. It's that simple, or you're not going to change what's working. And so if he only played 2 games and he never got called back in, I don't think that's much about him, but still good to see.
He played the first 2 games of the playoffs, and if you remember, the Caps lost both games to the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
So they went down 2-0 early, and then he never played another playoff game. He still won a Stanley Cup, though. Not bad for your first season in North America. But, the Caps had such a deep team that it was going to be hard for him to crack that lineup, especially as they got deeper into the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, it was, it's just, you've got a team that's running on all cylinders. You're not going to mess with that, right?
No.
So, one of the things I did get a message on Twitter, we were talking about Nurse, was, and I missed this quote somewhere, but I guess Chiarelli had said that, he was waiting to see what's happening with those other contracts before signing Nurse. So that's kind of interesting news. I guess that kind of goes to Ken Campbell's article. He suggests kind of in the article that Nurse is unlikely to be the first of the 4 that's signed. So interesting. I mean, I guess you want to see, right? Like, see what the market is. It also does sound like I'm getting a little bit of feedback on the on-air quality. It's a little bit echoey. I'm not sure. As we get into the season, we'll fix that. Hopefully in the recording it doesn't come out that way, but we'll see. This is a brand new format. I don't know if I told you, Eric, but hope to do at least a weekly on-air show and have people call in and I was looking at the schedule. Now I'm getting kind of off, but I was looking at the schedule last night, and my preferred day would be like a Thursday night, 10 p.m. Mountain. And I think that what's going to happen is I will probably, just for sake of my own time, the podcasting business, it pays big money, but so for the sake of my own time, I might just do Thursday games. There's really every month, only a couple weeks, if that there isn't a Thursday game.
Okay.
So I might just do sort of post game Thursdays. Yeah. So start. I won't start necessarily at 10, but start when the game's over, and that'll be the Oilers Live portion. And then I don't know if I've told you, but I will be rebranding the Oilers Live podcast to be the Heavy Hockey podcast.
Yes,
and that'll
we have talked about that.
Yeah, and that'll be the recorded podcast where I do interviews.
There's a lot of good things for the channel. I mean, I really like listening to the Oil Night show with Sean on the Oil Night with Dirtbag Dondi. Their format's a little different than the one that you and I have done. But no, I really enjoy listening to that one too, and I think that both shows have a lot to offer. And if the season provides us with some good Oilers hockey, it's just going to make the shows even that much better.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you have, but Sean has also started doing some guest write-ups on the journal Cult of Hockey.
Yeah, well, I listen to their podcast every time it comes out too, and if on one of their recent episodes they've mentioned that Sean was joining them for their prospect reviews that they've been doing, and getting his insight, because he has such knowledge of the Ontario Hockey League. It makes sense that Bruce McCurdy and David Staples, who were also on your show, reached out to Sean to get some more insight on some of the Oilers prospects out in Ontario.
Yeah, I think, this is something that I've often thought about, which is, the Oilers have such a diverse and great fan base. There's really so much room and so much that can be done in terms of, you're writing articles at the Oil on White. There's a lot of, I had Shane Sander on the other day, does for the Hockey Writers.
Great episode.
Yeah, and I had the fellow from Puckpedia on. There are a lot of great Oiler fans out there putting out a lot of great content. Even here in Calgary is Oilers YYC. I always like listening to those guys. There's usually 3 or 4 of them, and they've got a lot of Twitter names that everybody knows. Oilers Nerd Alert's been on there once in a while. I Suck at Picking has been on there, and they've got a wonderful show too.
Yeah, I did an episode with them back in October of last year, actually.
Oh, right on. Yeah. I didn't even know that. I guess I hadn't started till end of December, and it's certainly been a lot of fun.
Oh no, I actually remember the first time I heard your show. I was driving back from Saskatoon to Lloydminster when I was interning at New Cap TV there, and when I was looking for something to listen to, I found I just stumbled upon your podcast, and it provided me with a couple hours of good listening on the drive back. So yeah, it's kind of funny how people discover these things. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty solid podcast ever since.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of goes to like I've had of course Kelly on numerous times from Beer League Heroes. Everybody that's been on my show has, I think, given something back to the Oilers community. Mostly through Twitter. We all know each other on Twitter and constantly commenting. But I sure get, most of the information I get now actually doesn't come from mainstream media. The probably the biggest, the only ones that I really listen or read, and that's not to take anything. There's a lot of great writers out there too, but the ones that and they're kind of on the sideline of the mainstream media is, as far as the Oilers go, is the cult of hockey, right? Yeah. Like if you talk to Staples and McCurdy, they tell you. They're not Oilers writers. They're fans of the team that get to write, with a platform, right? Mm-hmm. And so, between you and Shane and Kelly and Sean and all of the folks out there, I have scoured other teams' Twitter and websites, and there's nothing better than the Oilers community. With maybe the exception of Toronto, and that's just sheer size. I mean, that the city alone is 2 to 3 times our size. I just want to point out again, we do have some listeners tonight listening live. If you want to call in, you can reach us at 587-907-5483. That's 587-907-LIVE. And that'll be the number that I use all year for call-in shows. It's a pretty slick system I have on the back end. I don't know, did you call in when we did the draft episode?
I didn't call in. I listened to it while I watched the draft, though.
Okay, that's awesome.
I had both going. Yeah, I there were times when I had turned the TV down so I could hear you guys better, and when they were announcing the Oilers, I turned you guys down just a bit so I could hear the analysis of them, because it seemed like there was a bit of a delay on ours. So I was still able to get your guys' take on it like a minute or 30 seconds or a minute after I I heard the Sportsnet guys talk about it. So yeah, it was good.
It was just fun altogether to have. Of course, it was Kelly, Dirtbag Donnie, Sean, and myself, just to be on there and have a chat with guys that we all enjoy talking hockey with. That was a blast. To do it live was just a new experience for me. The other day I had Lars Kallio on. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had a chance to listen.
I did. Funny guy.
Yeah, he is a hilarious guy, and that was the first in-person interview that
cool.
that I've been able to do. So that was a ton of fun to be able to set up a studio in the as we were saying, the Oilerslive mansion, and had him. He was across the table from me, and had a conversation, and it's a whole new way to do it. I know the Oilers YYC guys. They do that when they're in the lounge. I still don't know how they do it without any background noise. But.
I can it was a lot of fun talking to those guys last year. But I can tell you there were some challenging moments when they were in the bar, and I couldn't quite always hear what they were saying, or vice versa. It can be a difficult process, but I think that they've done that even for some Oilers post game shows on TSN 1260. I think they've last year in the playoffs they were coming live from, I'm not sure what establishment in Edmonton, but don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they were broadcasting from some bar there. So yeah, that can be an added challenge, definitely.
So I do want to one of the ideas. I know we're not this become more of a talk show about what's going to happen with Oilers Live, but one of the ideas I have, and for those listeners and those that are going to listen to the podcast later, I was thinking, as you know, I'm an avid hockey player.
Yeah,
I love playing hocky.
I couldn't believe how much.
I'm a little bit addicted to the sport. I was thinking it would be great to rent some ice in Edmonton in the winter season. Go down on a Saturday night or a Saturday, rent some ice and get some Oilers Twitter folks on the ice and have just a nice little shinny game.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Maybe we can arrange that for a time. You're going to be in Edmonton, and
I usually come there, a few times a year. So like 3 or 4 times a year, I'm usually in Edmonton. But if I know an event's going on like that, I'll definitely make it out there for that. That sounds awesome to, kind of connect with the community of Oilers Nation, and hopefully we have some wins to talk about, and it's not a somber skate.
So let's get back to talking Oilers hockey. So and hockey in general. I mean, let's maybe skip to hockey in general. Let's talk about Karlsson right now. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on Erik Karlsson? I know he's almost never wrong. Elliot Friedman said the Canucks were in on him. Who knows if there's any truth behind that? I'd be a little bit surprised.
Well, it sounds like he wants to play in a major American market. So, he's probably looking at, a Chicago, a Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, Vegas even. So I think that he's going to want to go to one of those cities, maybe even Dallas. There's no chance that he's re-signing next summer, in my opinion. So the Sens really have to make a decision. Are we going to trade him now or lose him in the off season the way John Tavares was lost? And you can't run your business like that. You have to get assets back. And the fact that they're asking for 4 assets right now is probably what's holding up any trade. I thought he would have been dealt at the draft, honestly. But I've seen all the trade proposals from Edmonton, and I mean, yeah, it'd be great to get him. But okay, now you're adding a 28-year-old defenseman. I'm not saying he's past his best before date. I think he's probably, still in, the maybe towards the end of his prime. He's put up some really good seasons. I don't know if he can get back to 80 points, but there's still a good possibility he can. But anyway, to give up, let's say, Darnell Nurse, Kyler Yamamoto, the first round pick in 2019, and a prospect like Ethan Bear, like that's a lot to give up for Karlsson. And then you're signing the guy for $11 million. So big cap hit for if they do a trade and sign, 8 years times $11 million. Okay, so now you're looking at a guy who's going to be getting paid $11 million until he's 36 years old, as opposed to Connor and Leon, who are getting paid $8.5 and $12.5 respectively until they're 29.
Yeah.
That's when you want to be paying the big dollars. Giving $11 million to a 36-year-old Karlsson, I just think that's a bit too much of a risk for me. Like, even what the Leafs gave Tavares, like that's a lot too, but he's not going to be that old when his contract retires. He'll be a couple of years younger than that at least. So
I'm going to slow you down just for a second. We've got I'm going to guess it's Mega Thread Mike has given us a call in. I'm just going to add him in. Mike, we've got you on the line. Oilers Live podcast. How you doing?
I always been on the mic with Mike.
There we go. All right. So new format. Of course, anybody that's out there listening tonight, and we do have some listeners tonight, they can call in at 587-907-5483. That's 587-907-LIVE. Mike, was it easy to call in?
Yeah, but you know what? It was a little bit tougher to find you this time. The best way, I think, is to go to your actual Twitter page to find your post about it, because it doesn't seem like SoundCloud is keeping up, or I usually find your podcasts on iTunes. And
okay, yeah, I think the only way you can listen live, and maybe I should post that. The only way to listen live is I've got a stream that you can listen to off of the website that's on the OilersLivePodcast.com. And we can accommodate through this streaming service up to 500 listeners. So there's still a little bit of room left. Not much, but just a little bit. Anyway, thanks for calling, Mike. We were talking about Karlsson. What's your thoughts? As you might have heard Eric talking. I mean, there's a lot of hope out there, I think, with some people in Oilers land that the Oilers might find some way to wheel and deal and get him in the lineup. I personally, and I think Eric agrees, we don't see him coming to a market like Edmonton. And if he does, it's what do you sign him for? What do you sign a guy like that for?
My personal thought on the whole Erik Karlsson thing is that's a very nice, eloquent pipe dream, but it's not going to happen. So we need to focus our energy somewhere else.
Good point. How about guys? As we go into the season, let's maybe stick with some Oilers hockey. Who do you expect is going to be out of the prospects that we've got coming in? I mean, Yamamoto, Cooper Marody. Who do you think is going to be the biggest surprise and maybe makes a big show? Maybe start with Eric. What anybody you think that might surprise us this year after camp?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, hey, Mike. This is the first time I think we've actually talked in person. So, how you doing, bud?
Yeah, doing good. It feels like hockey coming soon up here. It's starting to get cold at night and in the morning. Yeah,
it's getting cold out here in Sasky too. So, yeah, it's just around the corner. For a sleeper, people are. I think people are not giving Puljujarvi enough credit. Like, I think that this kid is ready for a breakout. I can't remember what the Hockey News had for him. I think they predicted 31 points or something like that. And I just think that if he's used the way he should be this season, he's going to be significantly higher than that. But what do you think?
You're on, Mike.
Yeah.
Did we lose Mike?
No, he's still there.
I'm here with you. I can't remember who I was listening to today, but almost seemed like they were ready to give up on Puljujärvi. I can't remember if it was on 1260 or what.
Matt Larkin was on Oilers Now, and he was pretty low on him, I heard.
Yeah. It was somebody today who was just about running him out of town, and I'm like, geez, cut the kid a little bit of slack. Like, he's big, he's fast, and he's only going to get better. I think he just needs to be put into some positions where he can succeed. Like, give him some gravy time, give him a little bit of power play time. I think there was a little bit of a stretch there last year where he was pretty hot, and then I think last year lots of guys had areas where they were struggling, except for one guy.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, like, he's a 4th overall pick, and we're talking about a kid who was drafted 2 years ago. A lot of players aren't even in the NHL when they're 20 years old. He just turned 20. So this is crazy to be talking about trading a player at this stage of his career. I think it's honestly because Matthews and Laine, who were in the same draft as him, have knocked it out of the park so early. It's set an unfair expectation for Puljujärvi that he should be doing the same.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's too much, and I'll just chime in on this one because it was McCurdy that said it first, right? Like Jari Kurri didn't get in the NHL until he was 20. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, to think that we're expecting Puljujärvi to come in and immediately be, a minimum 40-point guy, when pretty much the whole world agrees we rushed him. How can you come in? How can you say you rushed him and then say he's a bust? Right? Like, let's give him some time. Let's see what happens with him and go from there. This whole thing, and the Hockey News does this every year, right? Obviously, some people love what they put out, but you said it too. I mean, 22 points for Lucic this year. I'd take that. I'd take the over on that easy. 114 for McDavid. I'd take the over on that. And, Puljujärvi being a bust, I'd take that. I'd bet against that easily. I don't know what I think. As we might have said, I mean, there's a little bit of a negative after everybody was, made out to look like fools during the last August there. Guys, yep. Sorry, I've got. We're going to add in maybe Mike. Any last words? I've got another call-in user coming.
I got a quick question for him too.
Sure.
Let's get, before we go, since we were talking about that earlier with McDavid having 114 points, what do you think about that? Would you take the over on that?
Oh man, you guys, that's to me with him. I mean, anything is possible. I'm content when he's over 95 points myself. I think anything over 100 at this stage of the game in the NHL, you're doing something right for sure. But I don't know, like last year, towards the end of the year, it seemed like to me he kind of realized, okay, our team, we're struggling. I'm going to score goals, and I'm going to score a lot of them. If he has that same attitude coming out of the gate, I could see him, man, even 60 goals for him I could see happening.
Oh, I don't doubt it at all. I think that's right on. And if you look at it, in the first half of the season, he had 45 points. In the second half of the season, he had 63 points. So that just shows you right there what he's capable of.
Unbelievable. Hey, guys, we've got Well, we've got callers lining up now.
Oh wow!
This is crazy. Mike, thanks for listening and thanks for calling in. I can always count on you. Looking forward to having you back on the show come the next season. If you're up for it, we'll get Mega Thread Mike back on.
You betcha, brother.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah.
So we're going to go. We've got Sean, SPR, calling in, and I'm not going to tell you what the screener says he wants to talk about, but let's get Sean. We've got you on. We've got you on live. Oilers Live. I can always count on my guests to have the most inappropriate comments off screen.
I was going to say, is it on the level of Kelly's handles on Zencaster?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the same. We also have we've got another caller waiting, Sean. Believe it or not, this is a pretty big deal now. Oilers Live.
How's it
thanks
going,
for calling in. Good.
Hey,
we're doing good.
Yeah. I want to talk about something that rhymes with Regina. Eric's from Saskatchewan, so I guess he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not Regina though, man. Saskatoon.
Oh, Saskatoon. No. Same shit as well, right?
Yeah.
John, we got you on. There's a couple things I want to say. First is congrats on the guest spots on the Cult of Hockey. It's well deserved. We, I don't say this often, but we all enjoy reading what you have to say about the prospects. We just asked Mega Thread Mike what your thoughts are on the hockey news. 114 points for McDavid projected. You taking the over or under on that one?
That's a good question. 114, eh? I'd probably take the over. Yeah,
okay.
I think he's looking at probably about 120.
That's our thought. 22 points for Lucic. Over, under.
22 points?
Yeah.
Really? 22 points.
Yeah, that's what the hockey news.
Who's the dumbass that? Who is it?
Larkin.
Oh, jeez. 22 points for Lucic. What a fucking moron. Are we allowed to swear on here, Mike?
Yeah, we are now. I've got that.
It's happened outside.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. This isn't late night with you all night.
Can I actually just read? Can I read the point predictions out that the Hockey News had for SPR and get his take on it?
Yeah, let's hear this.
Okay, so here's what the panel of experts who combined their knowledge, and here's what they came up with for the Oilers' point predictions this year. So we got McDavid 114, Draisaitl 75, Nuge 60, Bias Reader 33, Ryan Strome 33, Puljujarvi 31, Kajula 27, Yamamoto 27, Jujar 24, Lucic 22. I'll end there.
Yeah, that's
60
that's
for
strange.
Nuge.
So,
what do you think?
Well, the thing is, if McDavid's getting 114 points and Nuge is getting 60 playing on his line, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And whoever's going to put on right wing, whoever's playing right wing is going to get more than 22 points or whatever the hell they're predicting for. What did they say for Yamamoto?
Yeah. 27.
Hey guys, I'm going to add Chase in here. He's been waiting for a little while, so he's going to. Is this a buddy of yours, Eric?
No, it's not. I'm wondering, is this the same Chase that called into Sean's show?
Okay.
It's probably dirtbag.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, let's get. You're probably right. Let's add in Chase.
Oh man.
Oh boy, this could get ugly.
Hi,
Chase.
Hello. Am I on?
Yeah.
Hi, guys. That's a great show, Mike.
We've barely talked about Johnny Gaudreau.
yeah.
Johnny
How do you feel
Gaudreau's
about
going to
that?
have a great season. I think he's going to get 100 points. He'll probably win the Art Ross. And it's 22 points. I thought that was a little too high on that. I think he'll stay in single digits this year.
Okay.
So,
how about 31 points for our former 4th overall pick, Jesse Puljujarvi? Is that right on the money?
Yeah, well, I would turn the 1 and the 3 around, maybe 13.
we lost Chase.
Laughing at me. You're just like dirt. That no good dirtbag. He's always laughing at me.
Yeah, that dirtbag guy. I'm not sure. This is precisely why I've never had him on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, he's an asshole. You don't want him on your show. You have a good show, Mike.
Appreciate it. So, what do you think about the Hockey News predicting the Flames going to the conference final this year?
Well, it's an excellent prediction. I think that magazine is hang on year after year. They always get it right.
They sure do. They sure do.
He probably doesn't love it that they're losing to the Jets.
More than your so-called Oilers fans and experts on there.
So Chase, if you were to, so you got Gaudreau for Art Ross. Do you also have him for the Hart this year?
I'm not sure. The Hart could go a number of different ways. Mark Giordano, I know they don't want to give it to defensemen, but he's probably going to win the Norris. We know that. And, who knows? He could score 20 to 25 goals and 60, 70 points. He's a great defenseman.
Kelly's tweeting or DMing me some questions to ask Chase, but I don't think they're necessarily appropriate for this show. Might have to save those for the late night with the Oil Night.
I haven't turned 18 yet, so if there's anything inappropriate, I will have to leave. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, well, did we get his take on McDavid for 114?
Yeah. Last question for you, Chase. What's your thoughts, McDavid? 114. You taking the over or the under?
Well, I guess I have to take the over because McDavid is the best player of all time. But I still think Johnny Gaudreau could score a little more.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's why they call him Johnny Hockey.
Exactly.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you calling in.
I'll call.
I just wanted to get it in while I still have Chase. I like to call Gaudreau a poor man's Yamamoto.
Hey, listen, you're just one of the worst people ever. That's not nice.
Well, I don't have to worry about Chase tweeting me now. No. Clearly, it was the Oil Night show was on the on his bad list, and now it looks like Oilerslive will make it in there as well.
That other show again. But you do good work, Mike. You're closer to Calgary, which makes it better, I feel.
Appreciate it. Hey Chase, if I do the hockey game in Edmonton this year, you strap on the skates and come out and play a game? Some Oilers Twitter fellows and of course those around the team that may come down. You think you might strap on the skates and play this year?
I'll have to ask my mom. She doesn't like me participating in physical activities, so.
That was a gold answer.
I'll have to let you
I was hoping you would say that. Okay. Well, let us know what your mom says.
Awesome.
Okay, guys.
Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, man.
So Sean says he got dropped. He's at the casino right now.
Okay.
but the fact that we've had just about everybody call in. Of course, Kelly's somewhere in the middle of the world, so he won't be calling in tonight. But we've had actually some good listens tonight so far. We've had up to
good call-ins here.
Yeah, really good call-ins. Again, you can call in.
An hour.
That's right. That's right. A little bit of an hour of just chatting about whatever, and you can call in at any time. 587-907-LIVE. That's 587-907-5483. Of course, great to have Megathread Mike call in. He's always, once the season starts, you can expect your notifications to go haywire again as the Megathread gets going. What do you think about the Oilers? Let's just switch gears and maybe we'll get this on. Maybe go down to the last 20 minutes here and then call it a night.
Sure.
What's your thoughts? How big of a deal is it that the Oilers are starting out in Europe this year? Do you think this is good, bad, or does it even matter?
Well, the 17-day road trip's going to be a little tough. They're going to have some really good team bonding time, but at the same time, you're looking at that's several weeks before you get your home opener. And I think that, they need to come back with a couple wins in their pocket by the time they play the first game in Edmonton. But I really think it'll be a good bonding experience going over there. Draisaitl's going to be psyched to play the exhibition game against his dad's team in Cologne. And then when they go over to Sweden, you're going to have guys like Larson and Clefbaum and Aberg, if he's in the lineup, who are really going to be jacked up for that too. I mean, it's how often do they get to play an NHL game in their home country? This might be a once in a career opportunity. So expect them to have good games and playing in front of family and friends. But yeah, they've only had, I think, one other road trip this long in franchise history, and that's when I think Edmonton was hosting the Brier back in 2013 or something. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a challenge for them, but they're going to have some days off in between the Sweden game and their next game in North America on the East Coast. So the long and short of it is that they need to come back with, I think, at least a 500 record on that road trip. You don't want to be coming back down 0-4 or 1-3, and now you're off to a bad start, and all the pressure is going to be mounting on them as they play their first game at Rogers.
Yeah, we don't see a game at Rogers until the 18th of October, which is practically unheard of. In fact,
probably
this is the latest. I think it's
other than a lockout season in a proper 82 game season. It's definitely the longest. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this? Opening the season against New Jersey, how that's just, to me, it's crazy given the fact that Taylor Hall had the season he did and picked up some award. The fact that they're starting against him, I think that's the kind of game that you can win and can really spark some confidence for your team. I'm actually excited to see Hall on the ice and that game will actually be an afternoon game for us, an 11 o'clock game. Devils will be fun. Taylor Hall, I hope the best for him, right? I'm not one of those guys that's upset that he left the team, but that should be a good game. A good game to start the season.
I think that everyone's going to be amped up for it. He's really good buddies with McDavid too, from their year that they played together and at the World Championships. So Connor's going to want to come out and, beat him. He's an intense competitor and that's his buddy, and they're overseas playing in a high profile game. So that the Oilers' top players are going to be amped up for it. And New Jersey's coming off a playoff run of their own. We'll see if they can duplicate that. So, yeah, it should be an exciting game. 11 a.m. our time, I believe. So it'll be an early one to get things going.
Yeah, and then they get 4 days off to recoup from the trip, and then they're in Boston, New York, and Winnipeg. We've got about, I want to say about 15 minutes left before we call it a night. I'm curious. Let's chat as we go into September. We kind of started down this path. Who do you think? Who do you think is going to be the big surprise? We had Mike come in and talk about that. Shane Sander commented. He put out his article today about the top sort of 5, maybe sleepers, if you will, or guys to watch next year. Cooper Marody, he's got as a 15th, 16th guy. What's your thoughts on him? I like this player. He's a good playmaker.
Yeah, I wrote about him a couple weeks ago in my own Oilers prospect review. And I have him currently ranked as the number 4 prospect in the organization. Now, some people do their rankings differently. For me, I like to rank on NHL readiness. So I mentioned in the article that there are several forwards currently ranked below Marody who I think have a much greater NHL potential and ceiling for scoring at the top level. But in terms of readiness to play right now, Marody was the only 96-born player on the list, and he turns 22 in December. That being said, he's also played very well the last couple of years in Michigan in the NCAA and looked pretty good in a 3-game audition with Bakersfield last year. So I said in the article that I think that he could spend 30 to 40 games in the minors, maybe put up close to a point per game or at a point per game, and we could see him recalled in January around the All-Star break as a guy to come give them a little offensive punch down the stretch. So I think he will definitely play some NHL games next year, but I wouldn't be so sold on him earning a spot out of camp. I think he's going to start in the minors. They have the potential to put together a pretty good top line of Benson, Marody, and Yamamoto if the coach chooses to go that way. But I think that they have a pretty good line there. So I think Marody's got some upside.
Yeah, and you hit on something there, which is really important as fans go into this season. Number one is we've got a guy coaching Bakersfield this year that, of course, McClellan is very, very familiar with in Woodcroft. They will, I think, for the first time in a little while, have some synergy between the AHL club and the NHL club. We also have, I think we're going to have a hell of a team in Bakersfield this year. No matter how you shake that out.
It should definitely be the best team that they've had since the Oilers took them under their control, right?
And yeah, absolutely. And every one of those players on the upper echelon of the Condors this year, I think has a shot at playing some NHL games, right? And that's just the kind of thing that drives them to be better. That when if somebody does go down during the season, you have a couple fringe guys that can come in and fill that void for 4 or 5 games or whatever it takes. Guys like Cooper Marody. I hope that we put Yamamoto down. I mean, who knows? I mean, he could have a hell of a camp again. And end up playing some games with the Oilers this year. I wouldn't be as against it, but I'd still like to see them develop him for another season, get a pro season under his belt in Bakersfield. All of these guys, out there in Bakersfield, getting some good time with some. As you say, NHL ready type of players. That's going to be good development for these guys. I think they'll be successful there. That's that breeding that winning culture is also that important. We've got actually quite a few listeners on right now. If any of you want to call in and make any comments or or anything, you can call in at 587-907-LIVE. That's 587-907-5483. Just give you a little heads up that this is being recorded. We'll release this as a podcast later. Scotty Upshall, what's your thoughts on him making the team this year?
Yeah, you know what? There are some people who will say that you don't need him and Kyle Brodziak, but they played so well together in St. Louis as a pair that might be just too hard to resist. If the Oilers can get him for $600,000-$700,000 on a cheap contract, if he proves himself in training camp, then yeah, you've got one pairing right there, and then you can maybe try another one of, let's say, Jujhar Khaira and Ryan Strome, who played well together. So I think right now the Oilers know that they can't afford to go big game hunting, so they're just kind of adding some small pieces right now. And Upshall might be the kind of guy who can kill off penalties, because honestly, if you're keeping the puck out of the net, that can be just as valuable as scoring a goal. So if he's doing his job there, then that's going to be a huge plus for the Oilers this season. And then they can maybe look in 2019, 2020 at some of the bigger name free agents and get a more established goal scorer on the wing to play with either Connor or Leon. But yeah, no, I think Upshall could be a sneaky good bet for the Oilers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think all the more reason to have him is because you got Brodziak. These guys got some experience together, obviously, and PK experience together. Did you happen to hear Upshall talk on Oilers Now?
I haven't heard that interview yet. I listened to all the shows on TSN 1260 and Oilers Now daily, but I haven't caught up on those ones yet today. So maybe after the podcast, I'll go in and listen to a little bit of content. I'm working a lot of nights right now, so I usually listen to the podcast version after, as opposed to the live airing of the shows. So yeah. I definitely want to go back and catch those.
So we, of course, we had Chase call in and talk all sorts of smack about Dirtbag. I guess Dirtbag must have been listening, so he's called in. We'll add him to the show. Dirtbag, hey, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I heard that one idiot caller. I mean, you guys had such a great show going. And then, some jabroni wants to interrupt it. That was not cool.
But you know what? I do appreciate that, he showed some responsibility. He said that he would ask his mom before committing to playing in our hockey event in Edmonton. So, that shows that he's maturing.
He's a good boy.
She'd be very proud.
Chase is a good boy. Oh man.
Well, thanks. This might be the first official time you've made a showing on the Oilerslive podcast. I had you, of course, on the draft day episode, but I didn't record that. And
I was
so
looking
this one
for it in the archives. I wanted to hear our.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I listened to it, coming and going as you guys were doing it. But when I went to try and get the podcast version, I couldn't find it.
So as you guys know, I'm running a pretty professional outfit here. And I'm not an audio guy by trade. For those people that are listening, and we've actually had a lot more listeners tonight than I thought we'd have. There's probably a bit of an echo when you're listening to me live. I don't know if you noticed that, Dirtbag. And it's the setup that I have. And so what I need to do, there's some things I've got to do. I figured out how to record it. Now I've got to get rid of the echo. But tonight's live episode was more of a to get on here and test this format out and see how many people we can get on, because I'd like to do this as a weekly weekly event. And then, of course, as you guys know, and we talked about earlier, the Heavy Hockey Podcast will be the interview recorded podcast that we do going forward, alongside the one you co-host, Dirtbag, which is the Oil Night. And I haven't talked to you much since you started that. You guys are doing a fantastic job. I've listened to everyone. Of course, I get to listen before they go online. So
you get the raw, unedited version.
That's right. In fact, the reason I listen is just so that I know that nobody's going to be calling me up the next day and saying, "What the hell?" Go ahead.
It's a different show. I mean, it's a show where it's very raw, it's very off the cuff, and you never know what we're gonna say, or like you just had to deal with tonight. You never know what kind of callers we're gonna get either, right?
so very true.
I've listened to every episode too, and I like that you guys kind of took a different style in the last episode. You talked a little fantasy football, so that was kind of a nice, cool change too.
Yeah, and we might do that from time to time. It's kind of anything goes. I mean, we're both big football fans, and we know the Edmonton market and Calgary market, Oilers fans. Many of them are big NFL fans too. So we'll touch on all kinds of stuff when it's whenever it's relevant.
So we didn't, and I meant to talk about this. You, I don't know, Eric, if you saw Dirtbag, if you watch CFL at all, but Eskimos shit the bed tonight.
The Eskimos choked real bad tonight. Yeah. Yeah,
that's I can't figure that team out. I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched the end. That's awful. On another sports note, here's something interesting. I play lacrosse, and I'm a big lacrosse fan. In Calgary, we've got the Minto Cup right now. And I don't know if you guys heard, but yesterday, Game 2 of the Minto Cup was supposed to be played and was not. It was canceled because the officials would not take the floor. There was a couple suspensions the game before, and that were all the teams agreed suspensions would not be up for appeal. There were a couple of suspensions the game before that were appealed successfully, even though everybody agreed they wouldn't. So the officials didn't take the floor. So have a look at that. It's quite the thing. I mean, guys are like you pay $20 to go watch a game at the Minto Cup, and it's excellent lacrosse. If you ever go and play, there's teams from Ontario and BC, and this year an Alberta team has really good showing in Okotoks. But that's crazy. I've never, I don't know. That would be akin to, like a senior hockey, like the Allen Cup. The referees not taking the floor or not going on the ice for one of the Allen Cup games. That'd be huge.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this is just kind of one level down from the NLL or a couple levels down.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of like senior hockey,
men's.
I guess. Yeah, senior men's hockey. Yeah. But it is fantastic. A lot of these guys can still play in the NLL and have played in the NLL. I've played lacrosse with a number of these folks over the years. And it is fantastic lacrosse. So they've rescheduled all the games. They figured everything out. But if you're in or around Calgary and you want to watch some good lacrosse, go watch the Minto Cup. It's at the Maxwell Center. That's my plug for that. Donnie, did you hear when we were talking about the hockey news? Has been kind of the big subject tonight.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Larkin's predictions? I don't think it was just Larkin. I think it was the whole hockey news panel or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on this?
I have some serious problems with a lot of that. I mean, Lucic 22 points is just how do you predict a 29, 30-year-old is just basically finished as an NHL player? I mean, which is what that would be if you're making $6 million a year and you get 20 points. I mean, you're on the way out of the league. I think people are really going overboard, like, a lot of Oiler fans are too, and I understand. It was frustrating. Even that second half of last year, I was thinking, is Luch ever going to score again? But I mean, 22 points, it feels like there's a bit of an agenda there. That doesn't seem sincere to me. I don't know about you guys, but it feels you're sliding way too much to the hating side for a guy who averages 45 to 55 points, every year. In 2016-17, I think he had 53 points, right?
51, I believe.
Oh, 51. Okay.
Yeah, they're obviously assuming further regression here, and I think that it's going to go the other way. I'm pretty sure he had 22 points by Christmas last year. It's just he fell apart after that.
Yeah. I think he had 22 in his first 36 games or something like that, which would put him right on the pace for around 50 or a little more than that. And I mean, if people, a lot of people, I get it, they don't watch every game, but, guys like us, we're hardcore, we're watching every game. I mean, he had awful luck as well. A lot of it was him, but he did have bad luck. I mean, he was missing open nets. He was hitting posts. He was getting robbed by goalies. And I just have a hard time believing that that's going to continue. I think, if he gets 60 points, okay, maybe he's getting some fluky good luck. But if you're getting 30 points, that's a lot of fluky bad luck. And I think we want to go somewhere in the middle here. I mean, if I were, you put me on the spot, I'll say he gets 45 to 50 points, because I think he's a guy, he's going to be here for a long time, so we have to get him going. And I don't want to push him down to the third line. I think McClellan's going to give him every chance to win that number 2 spot with Draisaitl on the left wing, and might even start him on the first power play, park him in front of the net, and if it doesn't work for 5-10 games, well, move him down to the second unit. But I think he's a guy that he needs a good start to next season. And I know people will hate this, but I think we should give him that opportunity. Not at the expense of any of the young guys, but in addition to the young guys, give them opportunity and give Lucic, another chance to show what he is.
Yeah, I actually have the numbers here too. 26 points in his first 36 games, 8 points in his last 46 games.
Wow.
So
26
he's not going to have
36. That's 52 and 72. So I mean, that's almost a 60-point year he was on pace for.
Well, and Stauffer's been talking about this
exactly.
lots, right? Stauffer talked lots about the mental aspect, which, he's got numerous quotes from Lucic. You might have heard him on Spit and Chicklets too, talk just mentally, that second half of the season. He was missing stuff that, tap-ins and you could see him on the bench, right? Like this was a guy that mentally was having probably the poorest second half of a season that I have seen mentally in a player in a very long time. I think he comes into the camp, ready, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he gets at minimum 40 points this year, and I expect lots more from him.
Yeah, he's got to play with Draisaitl to get there. Though, I agree with you. I think 40 points, 18 goals, 40 points was my prediction. But he can't be on the third line and expected to get 40 points. You've got to put him with some guys who are going to help boost up his numbers a little bit and give him some offensive players to play with.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. What's your take, Dirtbag? You think he can hit 40? Yeah,
I think you give him the power. He's going to get power play time, whether it's on the first or second unit. And I think, this coaching staff, McClellan, I really hope some things will be different this year, but I mean, knowing him, he loves his veterans, so I think he's going to give Lucic an opportunity, and I think Luch is going to come in here hungry. He has a lot of pride. Like you said, I mean, there hasn't been a worse. You saw him in the last half of last season. He was just looked defeated. I mean, he looked like a guy just his head down. He looked like he didn't even want to be playing. And I mean, that probably went for a lot of the team too. It wasn't just him. I mean, the whole friggin' team just started tanking around January. And, that didn't make it any easier anyway for anybody really, because, when you're not making the playoffs and you're just playing out the string, well, we know McDavid's not going to quit. I mean, he's the captain. He's a guy of the utmost character, and he wants it. If he can't will his team to the playoffs, well, he's getting that friggin' Art Ross trophy and deserves the Hart too, in my opinion. But if you're a guy and you're just slumping and just nothing is going right, and on top of it, you can't even win a friggin' game, that wears on a guy like Lucic, who's been there. He's a cup champion. He's been to another final. He makes playoffs almost every year. And you go to a situation like this, it's pretty new for a guy like him.
Yeah, absolutely. Switch gears. Talk prospects quickly before we go. I'm going to close the show off. Bouchard, Eric, is he on the team past 9 this year? And is that a mistake if he is? What's your thoughts on Bouchard? And, as it all relates to the Sekera injury, what do you think?
I don't see him past the 9-game mark. He'll get his audition with the team, hopefully show well, and put up a few points, and we'll get a little excited at times, and maybe he'll make a few mistakes, and people will be jumping on him saying, "Oh, he's not ready." But I think what's best for him, get some experience with the boys, go over to Europe, play in that Sweden game, come back here. Get a taste of what it's like to play in Edmonton, and then at the end of October, he goes back to London, tears it up there, and very good chance he captains Team Canada this year at the World Juniors. And that's an experience that I want for him, and I think that'll be just awesome for his development.
Who takes that 6 role for the Oilers? Is it Jerabek or?
It's right now, I would probably lean more towards Jerabek than Gravel, but I really think that's up in the air right now. I don't even want to count out Ethan Bear, but that he's got some things going for him. He's got an offensive dimension to his game. He shoots right, but honestly, I think he probably still needs at least half a season in the AHL, if not more, before he's ready to make that jump.
Dirtbag, you get the last word on this one. Bouchard, is he in past 9? Would you send him down, and who gets 6th spot on the Oilers D?
I think it's so close. With what I would do, I would just keep him for 9, then send him down. Like Eric said, captain the World Juniors, and lead the London Knights far into the playoffs, and just get your defensive side of his game together. That's what I want. Whether the team does it, I legit have no idea, because we've already dealt with an injury. More injuries could happen, and it might just be forced on us. For the 6th defenseman, it really depends on whether you want to put Russell in the top 4 with Klefbom, Larson, and Nurse, or if you want to put Matt Benning in that spot. Because if Russell's on the 3rd pair, you could go with Jerabek and you'll be fine. I mean, you want a reliable partner with a guy like him, to me anyway. If I see Jerabek and Benning on the last pair there, I don't know. That would make me a little bit nervous. I'd almost rather have a Gravel or something like that. But I'll go with Jerabek. I don't want to take the easy way out, so that's my stance. Jerabek gets the 6th spot.
Yeah. All right. You know what? I kind of think Jerabek's got the 6th spot today, unless if we see some
he's
changes.
a cup winner, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He's got that. He's got those 2 games of playoff experience in the first round that we need.
So, do you guys know, is his name on the cup?
No, he didn't qualify.
He didn't qualify. I was curious about that. I meant to look that up. What was? Did you look it up? Do you know what the qualification is?
Yeah, you have to play in at least 41 regular season games, which he didn't make. Otherwise, you have to play in at least, I believe, 3 playoff games, and one of them has to be in the final. And he played in 2 of them, and both of them were in the first round. So he might still get his day with the cup, but I believe he doesn't qualify to have his name actually on it.
Well, I think he gets a ring as well. I think.
Well, that's up to the team. The league has no say in that, right?
Okay.
Well, the team decides, who gets the Stanley Cup rings. But I'm sure that, I don't think that the Caps are going to cheap out and say, we're not going to get this guy a ring.
Yeah, exactly.
I went most of my life without actually seeing or touching a Stanley Cup ring. And this past year, I play in, and I always talk about this, I play a lot of hockey, but I play in 3 or 4 tournaments where NHL alumni play every year. And this year, I was able to not just touch, but wear. I wore about 7 different Stanley Cup rings, and outstanding. Everybody from Reggie Leach to a couple of Calgary Flames guys. The only disappointment is that I've not yet put on a Oilers Stanley Cup ring. That would be pretty darn cool to see. What actually surprised me is that any of these players, given the amount of times we hear the news about Stanley Cup rings going missing and that they would even let go of that long enough to be in somebody's hand. But they still do. They're quite proud of that accomplishment, as they should be. But
Norm LaCombe stolen this summer.
That's right.
And thankfully,
that's crazy. Yeah. So, guys, I want to thank you for calling in, Dirtbag, and Sean, and Megathread Mike, and Chase, wherever you are. Thanks for calling in. His mom's probably already tucked him into bed already. Guys, this was successful. I think we had a number of listeners on. I've got this is my first time doing second time doing a live show. We of course did the draft. We're going to do more live shows as I get through it. I'm going to maybe figure out with everyone's feedback how best to do the calling, call-in portion. Maybe I have a time where I specifically say, if you want to call in now, you can call in. I think tonight we just kind of took calls as they happen. Thanks guys for joining me tonight. Lots of great things for the Oilers Live channel, not the least of which is the co-host of the late night with the Oil Night today. Having you guys a part of that is great. And Eric, you've been on the podcast 2 or 3 times. This, I think, your 3rd time, or even maybe your 4th.
I believe it's my 4th appearance. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So the one of them obviously wasn't that memorable for me.
Yeah, clearly. I gotta keep up to you guys. I mean, you and Sean and Dirtbag have done a great job running these podcasts. Even Kelly, he's been probably the 4th most frequent guest on these shows. So yeah, I think the channel's looking good moving forward here. Yeah,
and all of my shows.
Go ahead.
With you too, Eric. You guys do a great job when you're on, and all of Mike's shows are great. So just keep it up.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys. Have a great night. This is not like a recorded show. When I drop the call, that's it. We're all gone. We all go home for the night.
Okay.
So have a great one. Until next time when we do the next live show, thanks everybody for listening. And this will be probably online at some point throughout the night or tomorrow morning as episode 32 of Oilers Live podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a good night.